Welcome back to Adventures with Rosy. Now today we're talking insurance. It's time for us to renew the insurance on the Caravan. I've been shopping around, looking at a few different policies, and I found some kind of strange things in some of the policy wordings. Alright, two things before we dive into it. Number one, I'm not an insurance expert. I do not work in that field. If you had any questions or concerns about whatever policy you have, you're best to talk to your insurer. I'm not an expert. Even though I think I'm a caravan expert, I'm not an insurance expert. Number two, I think there's kind of two very distinct classes of insurer here in New Zealand when it comes to motorhomes and caravans and that sort of thing. Kind of your specialist insurers, which we'll cover today as well as the others, but the two specialist ones here in New Zealand are the Covey, which is underwritten by Lumley, and also Star Insurance. They have a camper care policy, their specific RV policy. Your other guys are sort of your more general insurers that would do, house and fire and contents and car insurance. We'll look at a few of those as well today. We'll look at AA, AMI and state insurance. But I think it's worth pointing out that there does seem to be a clear difference in the kind of how in-depth the policies go. There definitely seems to be these kind of specialized insurers and other insurance essentially. So how I thought we would tackle this is let's look at some really practical questions about insurance. Questions like, can I legally drive this caravan off-road? Can I tow this beautiful caravan down a gravel road? That sort of thing. Rather than sitting down and trying to compare all the policies and what's going to pay out and what depreciates and all that sort of thing. Those, I guess, are very specific to your case, like what your repayment value is and that sort of thing. But I thought we'd look and dive into the policy wordings and look at a mixture of questions that I think are quite important, and also then just some kind of weird things I found in the policy wordings that I asked for some clarification on. I sent a bunch of emails back and forth with these insurers to kind of ask questions. Some were really helpful, some didn't even bother to reply to me. So yeah, I think we'll start with some sort of practical questions about insurance. Alright, so question number one is, can you actually live permanently, full-time, in your RV under that insurance policy? Recently we've been planning a little bit of a trip to America, and I kind of belong to a few Facebook groups about traveling around America, and it's quite common over there for their insurance to dictate the number of days a year you can actually spend in your RV before it goes from recreation to full-time living. And we didn't actually check this when we left to live full-time in our caravan. We just carried on with the same policy. Now, Covey have a specific permanent residence part to their policy, so that affords a bit more contents cover and that sort of thing. The other insurers, AMI, AA and Star Insurance, their policy wording all says, please tell us if you live in your caravan, or if you plan to live in your caravan or motorhome permanently. And State Insurance didn't reply to my email, and it's not actually in their policy wording. So it does seem like in New Zealand it pays to tell your insurer that you're planning to live in your caravan, and that might have a bit of a knock-on of your contents insurance, which we'll talk about in a sec. So question number two is a bit of a follow-up, and that's what happens if your caravan or your motorhome breaks down. If it's your permanent home and it breaks down, that's obviously going to be a bit of a pain. If you are on your big Christmas adventure, you've gone all the way to the bottom of the South Island and you have a breakdown, that's equally as annoying. Now, the different insurance companies handle this slightly differently. They pay out different things. I kind of expected that. I expected the specialized guys, your Covey and your Star, to obviously pay out more, but those policies do cost more. And so I guess it kind of washes out a bit, but it was still a little bit interesting. So Covey will pay out $700 a week for temporary accommodation for up to 7 weeks. So if you were waiting on a part, motorhome's broken down, you're waiting on a part to come from overseas, $700 a week. Star sort of one-up them, and they do $700 for 10 weeks, which is pretty impressive. Now the little guys, according to my notes here, AA will pay you $500 in one claim. So one claim of up to $500. AMI, one claim up to $300. And State, again, there was no word mentioned in their policy wording. State's caravan insurance is lumped in with their trailer. So it's a caravan trailer insurance. It's a little bit weird. But that is quite a big discrepancy. You're talking a max of Star Insurance paying you nearly $7,000, up to $7,000, sorry, for temporary accommodation. A little bit lower for Covey, and then the little guys are paying you a couple $100, a night in a motel or something like that. So, yeah. Question 3 I thought was an interesting one. That is, can you legally take your caravan or motorhome off-road? Now, if you're like us and you bought a beautiful off-road Australian caravan, you bought it with the purpose of taking it off the beaten path, right? You're not going to campgrounds, although I've been to a lot of campgrounds lately, but you're wanting to take it down a long gravel road in the summer, park up next to a river or a beach, and bit of freedom camping, dock campgrounds, that sort of thing. But can you legally do that? It is very common here in New Zealand when you hire a motorhome. If you look down in the small print, it will say that you cannot take that motorhome on gravel roads, and also drive it on beaches and things like that, which I guess kind of makes sense because I don't want to have to come and tow you off 90 Mile Beach because you've decided to take your camper van down the beach. Gravel roads is kind of interesting because some of the ski fields down in the South Island have gravel roads to get to the top of the ski field, so you'd want to read that. Technically you may not be able to take your rental car or rental motorhome up there, but what about if you own your own and you've got insurance? Now, I reached out to all of the 5 insurers we're looking at and asked them the question. I said, hey, I'm Bronson, I bought this cool caravan, can I take it off-road? Because I wanted to kind of get, I guess, more detail from them than just what's in the policy wording. So Covey said, and I quote, "We understand that clients often go off the beaten track to reach their destinations. This is fine. However, if you are traveling on a dedicated or purpose-built off-roading or four-wheel drive road, then we could not guarantee you'd be covered." So I guess what they're saying there is that if there was a specific track designed for four-wheel driving, and you took your caravan off it, then they would not guarantee it'd be covered. Probably makes sense. Those are designed for four-wheel driving. They're not designed for your motorhome. How you differentiate what road is designed for four-wheel driving or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, looks like you're kind of covered there. Star Insurance said something similar. They said, in regards to your question, can you take your caravan off-road? This is a great question, as some roads are not designed for all vehicles. As long as a two-wheel vehicle can get to you if requested, you will be fine. What I think they mean by this is two-wheel drive vehicle, and I assume that's for like a roadside assist, a breakdown service. So as long as a two-wheel drive vehicle can get to you, then this request would be fine. If requested, this will be fine, sorry. So I think that would cover you for going down a gravel road to a campsite, dock campground, that sort of thing. Unless you were going up a gnarly four-wheel drive track. So kind of similar. It looks like both of them wouldn't cover you if you took it on a purpose-built four-wheel drive track. AA Insurance have a section in their policy wording that is what you are not covered for. And they say driving on beaches, sand dunes, open land, rivers, or riverbeds, or unsealed surfaces, unless your caravan or trailer has been used on a recognised boat ramp, a legally recognised road, an unsealed surface usually used as a car park, an unsealed surface designed to access a building. Now I thought that one was kind of interesting because we're saying here a legally recognised road. So you are not covered for driving on unsealed surfaces unless it's a legally recognised road. Now, again, what's a legally recognised road? I assume maybe one that's on Google Maps that has a road name. But I imagine that policy wouldn't cover a lot of the roads we have towed this caravan down. Sort of roads that aren't on Google Maps, or yeah, it's an interesting one. Now I tried to email AMI about this and they don't even have an email on their website. They wanted me to chat to someone on Facebook Messenger, which is strange, and State didn't reply to my email again. But I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, are you covered if you tow it down a road? And it looks like with the two sort of premium guys you are. Yeah, the others didn't really get back to me. So the fourth question that I wanted to answer was, is my awning covered? When we're out on the road, we saw on more than one occasion someone's awning get picked up in the wind and folded over their caravan. We camped next to some people in Motueka area who completely lost, like the whole awning just peeled over, damaged the brackets, damaged the wall of the caravan. Like it was a write-off. The awning was a write-off. And I kind of wondered, do insurance cover that? Because if you put your awning out in the wind and it damages your caravan, are you covered for it? Now, one thing I did see in the policy wording, kind of repeated throughout the different insurers, was you are not covered for loss of any awning caused by storm or wind if it's been left erected and unattended for more than 48 consecutive hours. That kind of makes sense, right? If you park your caravan up, you put your awning out, and you disappear for 48 hours, you go on a hike in a national park or something, and the weather changes within that 2 days you're gone, and your awning gets destroyed, it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't, cover you for that. The other thing I was thinking, though, on the flip side of that, is there's a lot of caravans parked up at campgrounds, and they would have permanent awnings. Awnings that are set up all the time. They go down in summer, use them. I'm not sure if that's a separate sort of insurance issue. It looks like most people do cover them, though, if you put it out, wind picked up, and you damaged your caravan. Now, one thing I did find is that awnings typically depreciate, and this seems to be based on wear and tear of the awning. Most insurers had like a scale of depreciation, like however many years to percentage. So 1 to 3 years they didn't depreciate, 4 to 5 years they depreciated by 20%, all the way up to, if it was over 15 years old, your awning, it would be 100% depreciated. So if you had an older caravan with an older awning, it may not be covered, but it looks like 1 to 3 years for most things, 4 to 5 years, 20%, that sort of thing. So they do depreciate over time. Now, if you are living in your RV full time, or you're going away for that long summer break, it may pay to check your contents insurance on your caravan. Contents, I guess, it kind of makes sense that a cheaper policy, your AMIs, your AAs, they would always do contents separately, right? So it makes sense that their caravan policy would not cover contents. I was kind of surprised to find out that some of the specialized insurers do. So for example, Covey, they'll cover you up to $10,000 of motorhome and caravan specific contents. Now, that is, from what I've read, a lot of things like cutlery, utensils, things that permanently live in your caravan, that are caravan related contents, right? So not the drone in the cupboard up there, or my laptop, or that sort of thing. With Star Insurance, your contents are covered up to $3,000. One thing, though, that I did read in theirs is that they have limits, like upper limits on things. So, for example, you can't claim more than $2,000 for a laptop, $2,000 for hearing aids. I don't know how expensive hearing aids are, but you can claim up to $2,000 for hearing aids. Some of those limits can be increased as well. Star do have options to increase the limits. So things like, if you had an expensive MacBook for editing, this camera wouldn't be covered, my drone wouldn't be covered, so I would have to make sure they were covered under my contents policy for my house. But then I'd also have to check that my house contents policy covered those items when they weren't in the house, right? When they were out and about in the caravan. So it does pay to check, especially your cameras, laptops, that sort of thing. Now, AA insurance don't cover your caravan contents. You need a separate contents policy, similar to what you'd have for a house. AMI don't cover you either, but they have a separate caravan contents policy you can take out on top of your caravan policy. And State, believe it or not, for not replying to any of my emails, State actually say on their website that they cover you for caravan contents. You're covered for sudden and accidental loss of utensils, supplies, and appliances that you own and are kept in your caravan permanently. So things, I guess, plates, bowls, your toaster, that sort of thing. So they'll cover a bit. Now, another thing I was thinking about is your trailer covered? If you have a motorhome and you tow around a boat or a trailer with your kayaks and your barbecue on the back, or maybe you go around to farmers markets in New Zealand and sell whatever you sell, and you've got a trailer, is that covered? Now, I was quite surprised to find that Covey and Star do, and even AMI to some extent, do cover trailers. So Covey offer you up to $1,500 to replace a trailer. So if your motorhome was in an accident that damaged the trailer, they'll pay you up to $1,500 to replace that. Star was up to $3,000. AMI say $600, but they explicitly say no boat trailers, and AA don't cover it, and State actually wouldn't get back to me on this one. But it looks like State, you'd need a separate trailer policy. It looks like as well, if you have a boat, that would have to have its own policy. The boat and trailer would have its own insurance policy, which makes sense. Now, there were a few things that I read in the policy wordings that either kind of made me think or made me laugh a bit. Now, one thing that was kind of interesting is AMI says that they will not pay to air freight parts to New Zealand from overseas. So if you need a part to fix your motorhome or your caravan, they will not pay to air freight that part to New Zealand if you can't find it in New Zealand. Kind of made me think about like sort of English, German-made caravans, maybe American-made RVs if you needed a part from overseas. I suppose in this day and age there's a lot of RV shops here in New Zealand that specialise in those overseas parts, and maybe if you had like a Fiat motorhome, you've probably got a dealer right in New Zealand, or a Fiat parts person in New Zealand. Kind of interesting though, if they weren't going to freight it, do they ship it via sea freight and you just wait 3 months or something? Another thing I found quite interesting in a few of the policies I read, this is from State's policy wording: you are not covered when your caravan is being used to carry, haul or tow any goods, plant, machinery or samples in connection with any trade or business other than farming. So you're not covered if you're going to carry, haul or tow goods in connection with any trade other than farming. So I guess you can tow a trailer with a cow in the back, can you, technically? It kind of got me thinking, because Chelsea and I, back in the day before kids, Chelsea used to have a little business where she made children's clothing when Harvey was yay big. And we used to go to fairs around the country, sort of farmers markets, and we'd go down to this big one in the south of the North Island in Martinborough, the Martinborough Fair. A really cool fair, kind of takes over this entire little town. We would load our motorhome up to the roof with all of our boxes of stock and tables and gazebos and chairs and all sorts, and we would tow that, well, it was in the motorhome, so we'd drive that down to Martinborough. It was a really big day, so we'd stay in the motorhome. I guess technically what it's saying on here is that those goods and we wouldn't be covered. I don't know what would happen if we had an accident, but it does sound like those goods wouldn't be covered because they are connected to trade. I did talk to Chelsea about this, and she basically said, well, you would have business insurance that would cover that anyway, or you should. But it might pay to check if you are using your motorhome for part of a business activity. You know, if you're towing something somewhere, trade shows, that sort of thing. Another really interesting thing I read in a few policies is that your caravan and motorhome is not covered if you decide to take it to a racetrack and you participate in racing, timed racing, or drag racing. So that's quite, yeah, apparently it's not covered. Can't take this caravan drag racing, unfortunately. Well, thank you for watching. Always a fun topic, insurance, but it's kind of interesting. And yeah, if you've ever had any experiences that you think people should know about, let me know in the comments, or if you've got any questions about some of the stuff I talked about, far away in the comments below. We're just about to pack the caravan and go on another adventure. We've got quite a few actually holidays in the next month planned, so stay tuned for those, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.